Hello, all you headbangers on YouTube. My name is Alan, and once again, it's time. Let's talk metal. It has been a little while since I've done a new wave of British heavy metal video, so it's about that time. I know some of you out there get a little anxious if I go too long without talking new wave of British heavy metal. I start getting messages, people are concerned, seeing if I'm okay. I see messages popping up on various Discords that, dude, he hasn't posted a new wave of British heavy metal video in weeks. What's going on? It's like, I don't know. He did that death metal thing last week and he blinked 3 times while talking about Morbid Angel. Maybe Fred Durst has him locked up in the basement or something, doing things to him, man. It's all good. Everybody calm down. There's a lot of cool metal out there to talk about. Can't do new wave of British heavy metal every week, but I am circling back around to it tonight. So again, everything's just fine. Just fine. We're doing great here. Nothing to worry about. So tonight we are going to look at 4 very obscure singles from the new wave of British heavy metal era. Gee, I bet you didn't see that coming. These are bands that have not gotten a whole lot of attention. Not a lot of information is published on them on the main sites online or even in some of the main print references either. So what better place to give them a little bit of love, give them a look, a listen, and 5 minutes in the spotlight than right here on Let's Talk Metal. So let's jump right into our first candidate. This is a single by a band called VHF. Not the most original name. A lot of other bands have used it over time. This is the only new wave of British heavy metal one I know off the top of my head. They made this one single in 1980. Came on the Lion record label, never issued with a picture sleeve to my knowledge, but the label image is pretty distinctive. It stands out if you're flipping through a box of records. And it pairs the songs Heart of Stone with Cheating and Stealing. Cheatin' Stealing is the flip side. This one, not much is known about the band. These bands don't even tend to show up on Metal Archives. Metal Archives has always had a thing about listing some of the more obscure new wave of British heavy metal bands. They seem to be a little adverse to having those included on their website. In around 2005, 2006, I tried to work on that community some to get some of these singles listed. And they would always send the information back, like, oh, we don't want to list a bunch of stupid rock bands from 1980. Oh, that's not metal. Oh, that's not real new wave of British heavy metal. And eventually I was just kind of like, you know what? I'm done wasting my time with this. You want to have an entire page dedicated to Rush on a heavy metal website. You're cool with that, but you're not going to list these obscure new wave of British heavy metal bands. Good luck to you, and we're done here. So, yeah, you don't see a lot there. Don't see a lot of information filled in on Discogs either. There's a short entry on VHF in the New Wave of British Heavy Metal Encyclopedia from 20-some years ago, and it is not a very kind entry. Mel kind of slags the band pretty harshly for both tracks. Frankly, I think he's a little unfair. Yes, it's a bit of an amateurish effort, but is it really that much worse than a lot of the other singles that came out around the time? I think this one's okay. It's not a bad single, Charlie Brown. It just needs a little love. So let's give it a little love right now, and we'll check out the track Heart of Stone from the one and only single by VHF.
I've gotta find the
tracks. You're getting the idea there. Pretty heavy, rumbly beat, very typical new wave of British heavy metal sound. You've probably heard a riff very similar to that on more than one new wave of British heavy metal release. The problem, now Malk does correctly point out, that second vocalist who comes in on the third line, that is a bit rough on the ears. They definitely could have done without that. Everything was going pretty swimmingly up to that point, and that does throw a bit of a spanner in the works. I don't think it's a deal breaker the way that Malk apparently did. So yeah, decent enough tune, even if they were a little over anxious using the second vocalist there. Malk doesn't have much of a better take on side B. I don't think this one's so bad either. So you know what? We're actually going to give VHF the double shot of love and check out a little bit of cheating stealing as well, because where the heck else are you going to get to hear both sides of this single? I noticed even poking around on YouTube, a few of these singles are hard to find one or both tracks from. So here you go, to make sure you can hear what both sides sound like. Cheatin' Stealin' by VHF. There you go. They slow it down, but still nice and heavy on Cheatin' Stealin'. The song does have kind of a weird interlude in the middle of it that they probably could have done without. So again, they shoot themselves in the foot a little bit, but it's a reasonably heavy song. Nice little heavy, crunchy hook going on there. So I don't think it's nearly as bad as advertised. Is it the best single from the era? No. But, you know, for a small-time group at the beginning of the new wave of British heavy metal, again, released in 1980, I think it's passable. I don't mind having this one in the collection whatsoever. The only other thing I've ever seen listed as possibly by the same band is a demo from 1987. I am not convinced it's the same band. Again, VHF is a name that's not that weird, and I have a suspicion the 87 demo that I've got is by a completely different band, or if it has a connection to this one, that, you know, there's been a lot of lineup changes along the way. So yeah, I'm not really comfortable ascribing that demo to the exact same band, but decent little single to start things off with for the night. So let's stay in 1980 for our second entry and check out another pretty cool one. This is a single by a band called China Doll. Okay, not the most metal of band names. They do lose a few points for that. And apparently there was a China Doll that was more of like a pop rock band from back in that era. And so some people have occasionally gotten the two confused. This one, the new wave of British heavy metal, China Doll, only did this one recording, 2-track single. It pairs up the tracks Oysters and Wine, which again, kind of weird for a metal title. And the flip side is called Past Tense. The Past Tense track is okay. It takes a little while to get off the ground, but Oysters and Wine is the real gem on here. So before I talk any more about it, let's go to the tape and check out a clip from Oysters and Wine. right, there is China Doll, obscure new wave of British heavy metal act with the track Oysters and Wine, the A-side from their one and only single. Cool track, good paciness to it, has a little bit of an atmospheric vibe to it, which I like. It's something you hear on some new wave of British heavy metal singles. It's never been the most popular vein of new wave of British heavy metal when the bands get, a little slower, a little more moody. But I tend to like it pretty much. And we'll see another example of that here before the night is over, maybe two more examples. But yeah, pretty cool track. China Doll is another band that not much has been published about. There's no entry on Metal Archives. Big surprise. There's not much in the new wave of British heavy metal encyclopedia about it. When this was published, Malk mentioned that it was at the time considered a very, very rare single. Only a few copies had come up. I feel like a reasonable number of copies have surfaced over the past couple of decades. It's still one of those that you're not going to see every day, and it's not, dirt cheap, but it's not one of these insane, multiple hundreds of dollars kind of rarities either. I don't know if all copies came with the insert that I showed while the track was playing or not. It's something that came with mine. You might have noticed the sleeve was also autographed. No, I can't confirm that they're original autographs. I also don't really care. If anybody thought that, adding autographs was going to somehow increase the price of a China Doll single, let's just say they were wrong. Nothing extra was paid for the autographs. And that's something worth noting on actually a lot of heavy metal collectibles. Unless it's a pretty big name artist or a very popular artist who's deceased, I've noticed most heavy metal fans are not willing to pay extra for autographed copies of records. As a matter of fact, a lot of people will pay less for them because they consider it damaged. They don't want the cover written on at all. Myself, I don't care if the cover is signed. I'm not going to pay you anything extra for it because typically there's no way to confirm it's real or not. But on something like this, I won't pay less. I'm not going to count it against the record, but I'm not going to give anything extra for it either. But yeah, that is China Doll's one and only offering. Malk even mentions that he lived in the region of England that the band was active in the South, and he had never really even found anybody who could remember the band being active on the scene at the time. So again, probably a short-lived operation, but The Left Behind, pretty cool song on that single. And while the picture sleeve is not exactly, an artistic masterpiece, it is kind of a cool concept. Again, I've got a soft spot for these old black and white sleeves where the band did something kind of inventive, even if artistic skills were somewhat limited. All right, that is going to lead us to track number 3 here. So our third single, we're going to jump forward to 1985. This is getting kind of late for new wave of British heavy metal. Some of your purists are going to say it's actually at least 1 year too late. But I think there's still a lot of good new wave of British heavy metal titles that came out in 1985. People just, sometimes want to scrunch that window down as narrow as they can make it. But bands were still active in putting out decent stuff. This is another one of these mystery bands where very little is known. It's an act called Vagabond. They once again only released this one single. It pairs the tracks Deep Water with Yenoyo, which stands for You Are Never on Your Own, because I guess that wouldn't have fit on the line for the title very well. So Yenoyo it is. No picture sleeve, but it does have the decent picture of the little homeless vagrant vagabond. Hey, there you go, there's the connection. So again, it gives you something to look for if you're flipping through boxes of singles or looking at listings online. You can keep an eye out for this particular little image. Same story as the other singles. Not much of an entry to be found anywhere online about the band. Apparently a pretty short-lived proposition. We're going to check out a track of Deep Water here. So we'll play a clip of that one, and then we'll come back and talk about it a little bit. So here is Deep Water by Vagabond. All right, there is a clip of Deep Water by Vagabond. Slower track, very moody, nice atmosphere that develops all throughout the song. Strong vocal performance too, very emotive, works very well with the track. No, it's not a denim and leather, throw your fist in the air, beer drinkers kind of Hellraiser, but it's still a cool track. I like it quite a bit. Not an easy single to track down. Took me a while to find a copy of it, but I'm glad I did. The flip side, that you are never on your own on the B side. That one is a little more peppy sounding. It's got a little bit more of a commercial lean to it, a little more upbeat. Not a bad song, but it doesn't really have the mood or the tone that they captured on Deep Water. So not much else to be said about the single. And looking around on YouTube for a clip of this, I found the flip side posted, but the only video I could find that featured Deep Water, when I played it, I'm like, that's not the same version of the song. It's the same track, but it was obviously a different version. It sounds a little cleaner, and it's got a different vocalist. It actually sounds more like a female vocalist. So I don't know if the band stuck around for a while and did some lineup shifts and then re-recorded the song or what, but it's definitely not the same take as the one from the single itself. So there you go. If you like those sort of moodier, more atmospheric tunes from the new wave of British heavy metal, the Vagabond single is a cool one to check out. Not the easiest one to find, but there's also not a lot of demand for it. So again, it's not one of these super high dollar rarities. Before I look at the fourth one, just something to mention briefly in terms of the clips that I play. Now, I'm obviously not working off of the turntable while I'm making the videos here. What I'm usually doing is playing clips through iTunes. All the singles I own, I've converted over off my turntable into MP3s so that it's just easier for me to play them. They're more accessible a lot of the time. I've got my iPod loaded up with all of these things, so I can just put them into a playlist. So typically that's what you're hearing, is just essentially an MP3 rip of the single that I own. There are times that I'll pull clips up from YouTube instead. Sometimes it's just a little easier to do that. But I try to double check them and make sure it is the right version. And this is a good example of why. If I just played the clip from YouTube, I'd be sitting here right now looking at the camera going, that sounds kind of funny. I wonder what's up. And then we'd have to stop and redo the video or carry on in a very awkward fashion. So, but if anybody's wondering, yes, you're hearing MP3s taken directly from the singles that are in my collection. All right, so moving on to our fourth and last single of the night. This is another one from 1985. It's by a band called Buzzard, and no picture sleeve made for it, but a pretty distinctive image of I guess that's a buzzard, so it gives you something to look for. Another black and white label design. You'd think we were talking about early Blue Oyster Cult tonight, but we're not. This particular single pairs up the tracks Catch Me Alone with Ravenide Queen. A couple of quick things about Buzzard before we check out a clip. This is the only band in the stack that got 2 pieces of vinyl out. Buzzard had made a single from 1981. Malcolm mentions it in the encyclopedia. He's a little tenuous about whether it's the same band or a different band because there's a 4-year gap between the 2 singles. And the first single, as he describes it, is a lot more of a laid-back 70s kind of rock affair, whereas this one's from 1985, definitely has a more metallic lean to it. Discogs has both singles listed by the same band as well, so I'm going to proceed assuming that the 2 singles are indeed by the same group, maybe some lineup changes along the way. It's another band and another single where there's just not a whole lot of information published about them. They did have a couple of tracks appear on a compilation album in 1987 as well. I don't remember the name of it offhand. One of them was a cover of Golden Earring. So it's like, do we really need to hear Radar Love? Is that really what you want to put on a compilation? Is this what you think is going to get big label attention and take you to the next level and win you the adoration of millions of fans? Covering Golden Earring on a small-time compilation album? No, Buzzard. Bad Buzzard. Bad bird. You can do better than that. And you did on this particular single. Let's go ahead and prove that they can do better than Golden Earring covers and check out a clip of Ravenide Queen. Now, on this one, I'll probably skip the intro, the first 30 seconds or so, and get on into the track once it's revving up a little bit. All right, there is a little bit of Buzzard's excellent Raven-Eyed Queen. Cool, kind of noodly guitar line. Gives the song kind of this little frantic energy, but at the same time, it's got, again, that sort of dark, brooding type of atmosphere to it. I like the vocal performance on it. Yeah, I like it, just the kind of moodiness on that single. Again, it's a style of new wave of British heavy metal that a lot of bands did. It's not a sound you typically associate with new wave of British heavy metal. Most people are thinking Saxon, Girl School, Iron Maiden, Motorhead, stuff like that. But some bands went, a little more restrained, a little darker, and I tend to like those tracks pretty well. The flip side on this one, Catch Me Alone, is okay. That song takes quite a while to get into gear. It's got a good minute or so of just kind of slowly building up before it finally starts to move somewhere. It's all right, but it's definitely not as good. Ravenide Queen is the winner off of this one. Another single that you don't see around that often, but it's also never been considered like one of the top crown jewels of the new wave of British heavy metal either. So it's one that you can find for sort of medium price range on that one. All right, that is going to wrap it up for tonight's entries. 4 rare singles from the new wave of British heavy metal, showing a few different styles and some really cool tracks along the way. So now, let's talk metal in the comments down below. What do you think of these 4 singles? Does anything catch your ear offhand? Maybe these aren't quite your style. Maybe you like your new wave of British heavy metal have a little more energy to it, a little more oomph. And the VHF single had more of that than you might have expected. What did you think of that one? What are some other singles that are your personal favorites? Again, these long-lost, overlooked ones that never get much attention, but have some good tracks on them. And do you know anything about these 4 bands? I don't have a lot of information on any of them. There's nothing on the main websites, but there's probably some tidbits of information out there to be known. The comments are a great place to share them. Frank, I know you're still listening, so this is the challenge to you, buddy. For those of you that don't know, Frank comments on a lot of the new wave of British heavy metal videos. He has a very in-depth encyclopedic knowledge of that era. So this is kind of, advanced level tonight, Frank. Got to get into some of the deep ones here and tell us what you know about some of these singles. Thanks to Frank for commenting all the time, and thanks to others. If you don't check the comments on the videos each week, you should always go back and check them after a few days. There's often some really good comments, some great recommendations from other people as well. Recently, Metal Scavenger recommended an album by a band called Trojan that I might have heard of before. It didn't really ring a bell. The name Trojan's a little generic, but the album he recommended, Chasing the Storm, damn, that is a head-banging feast. Absolute killer, also from 1985, like a couple of the singles we talked about. So thanks to Metal Scavenger for the excellent Trojan recommendation. So definitely keep an eye on the comments. Leave a comment. It's always fun to read those and see what people think of things. And so until next time, everybody take care. And as always, keep banging your head.